Today we're going to create a grid of photos in Adobe Illustrator. Now, what this is really good for is it's really good for having a really good overview of artworks. It's previously been used for things like contact sheets, so this is going to be an Adobe Illustrator version of that. Of course, there's a lot of other tools that can automatically do this, but we're going to do this in Adobe Illustrator so that you feel comfortable, you continue to get more proficient using Adobe Illustrator. It's also really good for bringing rasterized images into a vector tool like Adobe Illustrator. So it just brings things like photos or any sort of rasterized images into your Adobe Illustrator document. We're going to be collecting a series of letters for referencing different letter forms, just like in this grid here. And this just makes it easier for you to identify all the different letters. All of these are different images that are just kind of cropped in and looking very neat on a page. So what you're going to need first, you're going to need Adobe Illustrator. You're also going to need a series of photos. Some of these I've taken on my phone, and these are just as an example to show all the different photos that we're going to be plugging into Adobe Illustrator today. So you're going to start by closing out. I'm going to close out of that. You're going to create a new document, and we're going to make this 11 by 8.5. So letter size paper document, and we're just going to call this grid. Let's just start with grid. Then we're going to click create, and that's going to automatically create an artboard. And if I show you the dimensions here, it's going to be 11 by 8.5. So that's the right size that we want it to do. So the first thing we're going to do is create a grid of gray boxes, and we're going to start by clicking on the rectangle tool over here. You can also press the letter M on your keyboard, and I'm going to click and drag to create the rectangle. But since it's getting a little hard to keep the dimensions I want, I'm going to press down shift, and that will maintain the proportions of a square that will be nice and neat for all of my photos to drop into. I'm going to hold it there and just let it go. I'm not really into this color right now, so I'm just going to go over here, change the foreground color to like a gray, just so I can see them. And then I'm also going to switch and click on this little outline box at the bottom. This is going to define the color of the stroke, and I don't want anything there, so I'm just going to press the / button so I can get rid of that. And now I have a really nice clean box here. Now we're going to create a full row of 6 boxes, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to select the box first of all, and then I'm going to click Alt on my keyboard, and I'm going to click and drag. And as I click and drag, it's going to make it so it creates another version of the box, exactly the same as the first one. But I want it to be aligned, and I also want it to be pretty straight. So clicking on the shift while I still have Alt, it's going to make it all aligned with the original one. And I think that is good. And now that I've completed 2 boxes, to repeat that step, and I don't have to do Alt again, where you can do that, you can press Control D on your keyboard, and that'll automatically save the last duplicate action and then repeat it again. It'll be exactly the same distance as these 2 boxes from each other, and I can continue to do that until we have 6 full boxes. Now that we have 6 boxes across, it's not exactly centered in my paper here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand it a little bit. I'm going to select all of them, and I'm going to select all of them, press E, and then I'm going to click this corner, holding down shift to maintain proportions, just like the box, and expand it that way. Now we might have to do that again because we're going to add a couple more rows down this way, so we have a total of 30 boxes. Now you're going to select all of those boxes, and then you're going to hit Alt again on your keyboard. You can see my cursors change to double arrows, and you're going to click and drag holding shift until it's like at a good place, and I think that's about good. And now you can do the same thing again. Hit Control D and it'll duplicate the same distance away. Repeat until you have 5 rows, and that looks pretty good. But now that I've seen all of my rows together, everything looks to be here included in the boxes. I need to select all of these, make sure it's centered on the page because it's pretty close to the bottom here. So I'm going to select all of my boxes by clicking and dragging, and then I'm going to select Command G or to group them. So it's Command G. You can go to Object Group, and I'm going to go to the Align tool over here to make sure it is centered horizontally and also centered vertically. Now this is in the Align tool. If you don't see that, go to Window, Align. It should be checked, and if it's not checked, you're gonna have to click on it so that it appears there. And last but not least, let's ungroup these, because now that it's centered and now that we have all our boxes, we don't need them to act as a unit anymore. So I'm going to Object, and I just did this on keyboard, Shift Command G. So Shift Command G to ungroup everything, and that way each of my boxes are separate things, separate objects. Now we are ready to add in the photos. You're going to need you need to have your photos on your computer. They should be a file like PNGs or JPEGs, but they're pretty much here. And for Mac, you click on your file from your Finder window, and you're just going to click and drag into Adobe Illustrator. That's going to bring your image into Adobe Illustrator. Now I'm going to just zoom out. I have a trackpad, so I'm just like zooming out with my fingers. But I can't see the boxes anymore, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange and send this all the way to the back. And now I can see my boxes. Now when you're creating a grid, it might be easier for you to use images that are cropped in as close as possible. But if, say, you have like one giant image that you want to crop into, and you just want, say, I just want this A over here, you can just do your best to align it, and then, like, I guess press R or click on the rotate tool to rotate it a little bit so it's straight, because it's going to get a little hard to navigate when it's in that box, especially when it's this big image. So you're going to click that image and then click on this box and press Command 7, or go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And this is going to create a clipping mask so that this box, this image goes into this box. Boom! Woohoo! Check that out. We got an A in there. Now, maybe I noticed that this is not centered, like he's sitting in the bottom, and I want it to be a little bit more nicely seated inside of the little cube. So I'm going to press A and move it up a little bit. So what A does is, instead of it being the selection tool, which is normally selecting the objects that are in Illustrator, the direct selection tool will select the contents of this box when there is something in there. And in this case, there's an image in it. So I'm going to press A, click on this, and now I have my photo selected, and it's a big photo. So I can shift it up by using just some arrow keys, and that was pretty good. But I also want to rotate it so it's a little bit more straight. So you can go to make sure that it's still selected using the direct selection tool, and then you're going to rotate this way. And now it's out of frame, of course. Out of the rotate tool, switch back to the direct selection tool. I just use the keyboard A and R to go back and forth. And then I move it again, and that looks good. And when I'm ready, when I'm done with all of this, you can unselect it or deselect it. Shortcut is Shift Command A if you're on a Mac, and then you're just gonna deselect it, and then you're good to go. There we go. That looks pretty good. If you're going to use multiple parts of the photo that you've included, you can also duplicate this. It'll duplicate the whole box with the contents within it. So with this box selected using the normal selection tool, you can click on Alt, see the cursor change, click and drag just like previously, and it is hidden behind this gray box. No worries. You just need to delete the one in front of it and you have your box. And you can use a direct selection tool to move the contents within it, and you can just move it around to the side. And now you have access to the R. So if you're going to be cropping a lot of within the same image, it's good to do this technique, because then you don't need to import a ton of times and you just have to rotate a little bit. But I still highly suggest having smaller images like these ones so that you can do multiple drop-ins at a time, and they're a little bit easier to maneuver. So I'm going to bring in these 4 and just click and drag them in. You can also do file place, where you can, file place, and then that'll pull up your Finder for you to find them. Now I have all these 4 images, and they're all already cropped. And what I'm going to do now is send them to the back, send to back, and now I have my images. So now that I have my images, I'm just going to click and drag them kind of behind the bar, kind of behind the box, and I'm already going to scale them down just so I can see where they're going to hit, and then I wouldn't need to move them around as much once they get cropped, because it's like, oh, I just need to hide them. And then I select the gray box in front of it, and then do Command 7 to create my clipping mask, and there's my K. I'm going to rotate a little bit so it's a little cleaner. There we go. And then I'm going to keep doing that to my other letters. And you can continue doing that all the way through until you have all of your references in your full contact sheet, until it looks something like this. So hopefully that helps with getting started dropping in images into a grid using Adobe Illustrator. That is it, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching.